Hey, this is Robin coming in from Emhance International Responder Development. Today I am attached to Vulcan Wildfire and we are doing a ecological prescribed burn. I'm observing this area to see how the crisis management structures are set up in South Africa. This particular event, what we're doing, is what we call a prescribed ecological burn. It's a carefully planned out fire that follows the natural fire cycles of the land. Before it even begins, the area is mapped out, carefully planned, permits are requested, fire lines are drawn, and the weather is always carefully monitored. It truly is a science and an art form, because every detail is coordinated to ensure that the fire stays within its boundaries. Wildland firefighters and the people who manage it try to work with the environment rather than against it, as fires have been raging for thousands of years. And especially in this ecological system, fire has been a vital part of the landscape. And this ecological system and the fynbos in it is a vital part to South Africa's unique plant kingdom. This unique plant kingdom didn't just learn to survive fire, it depends on it. As without fire, this ecosystem can't renew itself. Fire clears out old vegetation, makes space for new growth, and helps the land to regenerate. But not only that, it creates an exciting adrenaline-filled environment that's just fit for responders. Welcome to Emhance International Responder Development. The plan has been made. They're going to burn the right portion first, carefully and controlled, in order to not burn the left side, because there is a chance that it might get out of hand. Even though wind conditions on this day were very low, by burning it down in portions, it's more effective to have a more controlled burn, and therefore a more controlled fire. For me, with the limited knowledge about ecological I have, it's very similar what we call in the Netherlands called heide.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looks a little bit like this.
Yeah. That's incredible. So like also as flammable.
Yo, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have had some burns.
Okay. Do you manage with fire as well? The ecological management like we do, like so you prescribe burns with it and
I hope that they're doing it. I don't know. From the knowledge that he gained here in South Africa and in the USA, and took it back to the Netherlands and actually started hand crews in the Netherlands. What you can see here is one of the crew members carrying what we call a drip torch. The drip torch is one of the key tools to use to control fire. It's a simple device, but it's incredibly effective in the hands of an experienced crew. It's essentially a canister filled with a mix of diesel and petrol. There's a long snout that you can see, which allows the fire to be carefully dripped onto the ground. As the crew walks, they create what we call a line of fire or a fire line. But it's steady, always in a controlled way, and always intentional. Drip torch helps to shape the burn and guide it where it needs to go in combination with the wind. It's not about wild, unpredictable fires, especially not with ecological burns, but about managing the fire with precision, the right timing and technique. With this, the drip torch becomes a tool of regeneration, setting the stage for new life to rise from the ashes. The fire is ignited slowly, deliberate and controlled. We allow the flames to crawl through the dry fynbos and consuming only what the land no longer needs. Old stems, tangled underbrush, and years of accumulated fuel. To the untrained eye, it may look like destruction, and to some part it is. But for fynbos, this is renewal, as without fire the landscape begins to choke. Dense vegetation crowds out sunlight, while thick layers of dead plants matter smother new life before it has a chance to grow. Nutrients once locked in dry, decaying material remain trapped, unusable. But in this ecosystem of fynbos, fire is more than an ending, it's a beginning. Because the heat and the fire cracks open seed pods that are in the fynbos. Smoke can trigger germination. Flames clear space and get rid of alien vegetation, not just for survival, but for rebirth. In the absence of fire, growth slows, biodiversity fades, and the land begins to forget how to thrive. With fire, carefully timed, expertly managed by wildland firefighters, the system can exhale. What burns today is the fertile ground for tomorrow's bloom of native vegetation.
Maybe just put it on the radio.
To be a wildland firefighter requires physical strength. And physical strength is just the starting point. What really matters is the knowledge to be safe and the ability to understand the fire, read the landscape, and respond in real time. Wildland firefighters need to know how fire behaves across different types of vegetation, how the weather, wind, and slope can influence its speed and direction, and how quickly conditions can change. Wildland firefighters should always study flame height, fuel moisture, rate of spread, and it's really important to read the smoke, its color, its movement, and the way it rises. Because the smoke can reveal what the fire is doing long before the flames arrive. Terrain matters much too. A small hill can make the fire move faster, and a sudden wind shift can change everything. Knowing how to move, when to hold, and when to step back. That kind of decision can make a difference between control, chaos, and disaster. Communication is just as important. Radios keep crews connected, help track shifting conditions, and make sure that everybody knows where they are and what they do. Every move is coordinated, every role matters. And beyond the fire itself, there is a deeper understanding of the land, the plants, and the purpose of the burn. In a prescribed burn just like this one, it's not just about managing flames, it's helping the ecosystem regenerate, protecting the biodiversity, and using fire as a tool, not a threat. It takes science, it takes instinct, and it takes experience earned on the ground by dedicated hard work, sweat, and dedication. Therefore, as a search and rescue professional, I have the uttermost respect for wildland firefighters, because they work in this mountainous environment with extreme heat of the fire, and it's not to be explained until you have experienced that heat yourself. Fynbos needs fire to reproduce, recycle nutrients, and maintain species diversity. Smoke, heat, and ash trigger germination of numerous seeding species and stimulate the growth of resprouting shrubs and bulbs. The removal of old vegetation reduces competition for light and moisture for post-fire species. Without fire, fynbos communities will decline over time as bulbs may become dormant and soil stored seeds reduce due to predation by rodents.
Right, do you want me to stay in position, over? No, I'll start moving up and then you just start moving up, over. Okay, copy that.
So there's a reason why there's a safety zone is at least four times flame length, if not more. If you look at the vegetation height, you work your way backwards, you're going to be roughly standing where I am. And when you're standing here and that vegetation is burning, it was intensely hot. You couldn't stay here for that long, you had to pull back. So that's why you want to look at your flame length, not the vegetation height. And your flame length, 4 times that is where you would be looking to your safety zone. So looking at this flame length, we'll be looking at the safety zone another probably 15, 20 meters out that way in order to be protected from the heat from the slot. The vegetation over there that you can see, it's called Emhance. It's a firewise plant. It can be planted around structures, and what it'll do is, it's not that its understory won't burn, but it will slow down the intensity of the fire, and when the fire hit that area, it actually drop dramatically in intensity. If you go and have a look closely, you'll see it does burn through the sort of root system and the undergrowth, but nothing like the intensity of the grass or the flame boss. So planting that around your house and other types of plants like that will allow, if spot fire lands, or an ember lands in the garden and starts to fire, when it hits that type of vegetation, it's going to drop right down, slow right down. It means that there's a chance of protecting the structure from the fire getting there. It's a very moist plant. It's sort of like a succulent in a way. It absorbs a lot of moisture. It's designed to obviously survive through periods of drought or extended periods of no rain. And you can just see how the fire actually burns into it and kind of smoulders through, but it really doesn't ignite like other vegetation does.
Fire is one of the oldest things we ever know. It has built civilization. Yet it's one of the first things we learn to fear. That fear is ancient. It's instinctual, passed down through the generations like a story written in our DNA. So when you stand in front of it, even during controlled burn, that fear is there. Not loud, not panicked, but quiet. A deep awareness, a tension in the chest. Because you know, fire doesn't follow commands. It doesn't answer to us, even if you light it yourself. It behaves according to its own rules. And our job is to simply understand those rules and to work within them. That fear is not irrational. It comes from respect. Respect for how fast the flame can spread, how breeze can change the direction in seconds, how heat can build up quietly until it explodes into something more dangerous. And yet, that same force, the one we are taught to run from, is a force of life. It clears out the dead, makes space for light, releases seeds that's been waiting there for years. It restarts the clock for landscapes that have been waiting for that reset. For wildland firefighters, that balances everything. You never lose the fear, and you never should. It keeps you alert, it keeps you precise, you double check your lines, you read the smoke, you watch the sky, you look out for your team. And in that fear, there's a kind of quiet confidence. Because you're not there to fight that fire. You're here to work with it. To walk that fine line between risk and reward. Between destruction and renewal. So when the flames rise and the air begins to shimmer, the fear doesn't overwhelm you. It sharpens you. Reminds you that what you're doing matters. Not just for today, but for the land, the people, and the generations that will come after. Fire is powerful, but so is understanding it. So is respecting it. And in the end, so is standing in its presence, working with it, not without fear, but with purpose. So I deeply understand that we as humans are afraid to light fire. But we must understand, as governments, as public safety professionals, as crisis managers, that sometimes nature needs to burn. Therefore, we must support the people like wildland firefighters that can do it in a controlled way. We need to educate ourselves on wildfire ecology and the impact that it has. Because if you don't, fire will catch you off guard. And then it will become the danger and chaos and destruction Visitors. Visitors.